Tonight, new info on the latest Q posts. Has Apple's decision to let China hold the keys to the iCloud created a clear and present threat to national security in our country? Hi, I'm Craig, and welcome to Just Informed Talk. For those of you who don't know, I start off each one of these episodes by saying thank you to each and every one of my subscribers. Without you guys, this channel would not be possible. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, please come here to this landing page. Click the big red subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications. That way, as soon as these videos get posted, you'll be notified. And because as soon as information is made available to me, I do my best to make it available to you. Now, nothing new as of yet as far as Q posts go, but there's a lot new as far as information goes that we are putting together based off of these latest posts. Now, what is the first tidbit of information we can do? These are the latest posts. If you guys want to get a catch up to where we're at right now, go back here and start watching this video, and then you'll come into this video and you'll get a lot more explanation as to what we're talking about here. But going right into the Q posts, this is incredible. Okay, so the story is starting to come together. It's starting to come together in many different ways. We have a lot of different information, and we're going to go over it very clearly and succinctly here for you guys. I hope I can draw all these pieces together so that they make sense to you guys and that you're able to decipher something. But the first thing I want to talk about is this. It's a report out of Reuters, and this is from a while ago, back in February of 2018. This was a story that broke here and then on InfoWars and other news sites around the world, basically, when the decision was made by Apple to move to store the iCloud keys in China. And what does this mean for the United States? Well, it can't mean anything that good for the United States, right? And I'll explain why. For those of you who aren't aware, those of you who aren't really up to date with what we're doing here and what this all is, the basic premise of what's going on here is that Q has left us all these pictures, right? You have the pictures of what looks like a JetBlue flight flying out of Oakland, California, which would be near Cupertino, which is where the Apple headquarters is, which is pictured here. And then you have the back of a refrigerated freight truck, apparently, according to a lot of great research by AN0Ns out there. And then this is a picture of the iPhone store in Hong Kong, which is their security, where they keep all their top security stuff or whatever. Okay, so, and I don't mean top security stuff. I mean it's their security headquarters, as they put it, for Apple in Hong Kong. Now, why is this all so important? And how does it all connect? Well, all we have to do is look back to a Trump tweet. Now let's mind ourselves and look at the timestamp here. So this is in military time, but it's 22:55:33, which is 10:55 p.m. at night. Okay, so just remember that the first tweet we got here from Q was at 10:55:33. What happened on Trump's Twitter account 10 minutes before? Well, we'll look at it. And AN0N put together a great graphic here that shows the connection. You have the Apple store there, and then you have Donald Trump's first tweet here that they like to point out, where it's talking about how he's looking forward to meeting with Tim Cook of Apple, and we're talking about many things, including how the U.S. has been treated unfairly for many years by many countries on trade, specifically China. I guarantee you that China was the emphasis of the conversation in that they had together. Now, and that's from April 25th. Okay, and now we go here to the May 2nd at 10:45 p.m. So 10 minutes before Q posts, you have here Donald Trump tweeting, our great financial team is in China, quote unquote, our financial team. He doesn't put quotes around it, but the AN0N highlights that, trying to negotiate a level playing field on trade. I look forward to being with President Xi in the not so distant future. We will always have a great relationship. So this is a big deal. And how does it all dovetails back to this? Okay, them moving the iCloud keys to China. Now, what would you predominantly probably move information like the keys to the Apple iCloud? How would you move those? Well, you'd move them in servers or hard drives, something to that effect. And that's what this picture comes in. Now, this is a picture of the back of a semi pickup truck, which a lot of ANONs have spent a lot of time pointing out some very interesting things. First, you have a company called CHEP, CHEP. They're the ones that make the pallets. Now, CHEP, CHEP, is known for making very good, high quality pallets for usually for transporting things like technology or high priority packages, because they build their pallets with great strength, durability, so on. So where did CHEP come from? Well, CHEP was founded out of basically U.S. military surplus in foreign bases abroad, where we left our pallets that we had used in the army to transport things, and then a company called CHEP came in and started selling those pallets out after, I guess, they bought them. And then they were bought by an Australian company, and I think right now it's one of the biggest suppliers of pallets for sturdy and secure transport in North America. And I think it's Brambles is the company that owns it, based out of Australia. And I'm kind of just doing that off the top of my head because it's not very important, but it does kind of all tie into what we're talking about here, especially if you take into account the infiltration of Australia by China, so on and so forth. Just things to consider. Now, a lot of ANONs have pointed out that these packages seem to be shrink wrapped. They pointed out that they're not sure if that's some kind of chunk missing or if it's a tarp laying over, but they have pointed out that there's foam in between these, and that they all seem to be wrapped very carefully with multiple security straps, which they say these straps are usually only used when you're flying on an airplane, which I don't know that this packaged material could fit on an airplane like that. Very possible though. Or it was transferred separately, but that is besides the point. What the point of all of this is, though, is that what is inside of these packages. Now, a lot of people speculate, is it cash? Is it something else? Who knows? But I can make a pretty educated guess here to say this. What's most likely, in my opinion, inside of these packages are the servers, hard drives, etc., that hold the keys to the Apple iCloud. Now, I would imagine it would be not just one device that would hold all that information. It would be multiple devices. And people have pointed out a great point that, first of all, the way you can tell that this is a refrigerated truck, most people are pointing out, is that these slats in the floor. Okay, so the floor is actually given these slats so that if a package on a pallet gets damaged, you'll see that it'll keep the liquids from pooling underneath, or the contents from pooling underneath, and it'll give them a chance to kind of roll out and be cleaned out and kept from damaging the packages further, also kept from contamination, so on and so forth. Now, what they've pointed to, though, through all of this is that you basically have the highest quality pallets you can buy, holding very well secured boxes that look like they've been secured for not just travel in a truck, but travel on a plane. And you have this foam cushioning, which appears to be a foam cushioning. It could also be just a slight deviation in what you can see here, but it looks to be that is holding all of these in place so that you can't risk them damaging it. And then why would you transport this in a refrigerated truck? Well, because most of hard drives and computers and the whatnot are made with plastic and silicon components, right? Now, the plastic sometimes, if it gets to a high enough temperature, can melt, or heat can actually damage drives. And people know this who work with computers. Excessive heat can end up damaging your computer. That's why you have a cooler inside of every computer, a fan that's cooling it in some form or fashion to keep the circuits from overheating. Now, if this is the case, then my speculation at this point is that these are the keys to the iCloud, and they're being transported. And Q's pointing this to us, and Trump in turn is telling us that he has sent his financial team to China, which most likely includes some person from the Q collective who was probably instructed to oversee this. And maybe there's some espionage going on behind the scenes where they're actually getting inside access, or they're ripping and stealing these pictures off the phone. But what does this mean for us? Well, there is a lot of implications that can be made from this. Let's just take one. The one implication I want to take from this that I think could be dire for our country and national security as a whole is if you consider the fact that by storing the keys to the iCloud in China. You give the Chinese government unfettered access to pretty much all databases regarding or with regard to Apple products around. Now, let me just ask you guys, who is the biggest thief of intellectual property in the world as of today? And I can say this without a doubt, it's China. And not only is China the biggest intellectual property thief that there is, they're also engaged in economic warfare with us. They're engaged in the IP theft, which leads to broader economic warfare. And they're engaged in currency manipulation and so many other things that are definitely counter to what we would expect from a supposed trade partner, right? So that's the big meat and potatoes of what we're getting into here today. So I want to thank every one of you for watching and sticking here with us. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is about Apple. So Apple's been reporting some crazy numbers, right? They've just blown up this last quarter after apparently only a 3% boost in iPhone sales, but that 3% boost has led to this huge, 61 billion for the quarter in sales, right? And their profit went up 25% to $13.8 billion. Now, do you think that what happened was that this is a bribe, this is a payoff by the Chinese government to Apple to say, you give us the keys to your iCloud servers, and we will in turn boost your sales in China and open you up to the Chinese market and get you in every single store that you want to be in, and give you access to one of the second largest market in the world for smartphone technology, if not by price, by volume, certainly, and maybe higher by volume. But they've said recently in articles that China has overtaken the EU in smartphone demand, but we'll get into that. Now, this is all fascinating, and it was all based on this iPhone X, which was a flop here in the United States, and now it's a hit over in China. And the problem is, right, that when you connect the dots on all this, it really gets shady, and who is involved and how they're involved and what they want to do. Now, here's an interesting thing to note. Warren Buffett, we all know him. He's the Walmart tycoon, or as I like to call Walmart, China Mart tycoon. Now, Buffett's as in bed with the Chinese as anybody could possibly get. And do you think he's convinced his crony buddies at Apple to jump on the China train? The globalists expect China to be the new dominant, like they've said, some globalists have been quoted as saying even that China is going to be the future of the world, basically, economically. They'll overtake the United States economically in the next 50 to 100 years. Now, if you look at the numbers, yes, that is possible. But if you understand how trade works, it's not definitely going to happen. There's definitely things that we can do to stop it. But here's an interesting article that talks about how somehow he had some foreknowledge of this and decided to go out and buy 75 million Apple shares right before this big boost happened. So this is what I've talked about before. You know, you look at these guys, they're all insider trading. They're all in the elite clubs where they talk about what's going to happen, all the next upcoming things. So they know how to position themselves. So by the time you hear about Warren Buffett, and this is the point, okay, I'm not saying that he's an insider trader. I'm not making that allegation. I'm just saying that things are alleged about this person. But if you look at Warren Buffett and you look at his portfolio and look at the way he shifts his money around, one thing that becomes very clear is that by the time you hear about a move that he's made, they're already looking at the next way to sell and earn more money, sell out our country and earn more money, in my opinion. So you have Walmart's head here in bed with Apple, and he's buying 75 million Apple shares right before they get the boom, after they give the keys to China, and China then opens up their market. I mean, you guys see the dots connecting here? Do you see the nexus of what we're really dealing with? And then you hear him, you have Tim Cook talking about the strength of the iPhone X and how it's so great in China, right? In China, revenue rockets. Well, good for him. That's exactly what we're getting into here. Now, there's 2 or 3 big stories that are in China right now, just coming out this week. They're talking about how, first off, you have the China tech billionaire Alibaba, billion dollar company, Alibaba, and their billionaire CEO Jack Ma deciding to buy a chip maker that's broadly responsible for doing face scans to board airplanes and much more, right? But they put that technology, and that's what their obviously their patents are all about. Now, this is all a big push in China. They're obviously trying to make an Orwellian state where, and they've gotten pretty successful so far at it. So now they're trying to expand that Orwellian state, and by stealing our intellectual property, it's only furthering their ability to do that, right? So we consider this what you would call economic warfare, but in my opinion, it's more like straight out, flat out warfare, because it's going to end up coming to that if nothing changes, right? Hopefully not. We can always hope for the best here, but you have these articles coming out where, he's optimistic about U.S.-China relations, and of course he's optimistic. They just paid him $16 billion in profits, or $13.8 billion in profits, to sell. He sold basically the keys to the kingdom to China. And now China's going to turn around and take those keys, and they're going to steal more intellectual property. So they don't mind giving him access to Chinese markets. They don't mind giving him access to more billions of dollars if in turn he gives them access to U.S. intelligence, U.S. iPhone messages, and all of the data that's hidden or kept in there, supposedly encrypted, but now obviously open to the Chinese government to just walk in, steal anything they want, and do whatever they want. So this is unfathomable. I don't know. If this doesn't boil your blood, I don't know what will. And then you have another company called Xiaomi. It's China's Apple, quote unquote, which more people have compared it to Facebook because they do make phones, but their whole plan, their whole mission, or not mission, I should say, their business plan, right, is to actually use targeted advertising by basically monitoring everything you do. And who does that sound most like? Well, that sounds most like Facebook, especially if you look at what's just gone down with their Cambridge Analytica and Mark Zuckerberg testifying on Capitol Hill. But you have them looking at going in an IPO of, I think they're anticipated at like 10 billion here, but then they're saying that they could be potentially valuing the Beijing-based company at $100 billion. And what kind of smartphones do they make? Well, they make, in my opinion, what look like LG knockoffs, Samsung knockoffs. Maybe it looks like it's like a mix between a Samsung knockoff with a iPhone knockoff. So it's like their hybrid knockoff where they took the best things out of each phone and put them into one phone by stealing intellectual property and avoiding any kind of patent law here in the United States. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that great how China treats us so well? They're so loving with the way they steal our technology and then turn around and make billions of dollars off it, and then allegedly bribe CEOs like Apple's CEO Tim Cook to come over and give the keys to the kingdom to China so they can spy on the Americans even more and steal more intellectual property. Isn't that wonderful? I'm being obviously sarcastic and facetious there, but you guys let me know what you think. We're just going to jump into the next thing. And that's kind of how that's all these pictures I think are connected. I think this is what Q is referring to. I think this is the theory I have right now that I put together after many hours of research and looking at everything I could to figure out what's actually going on here and what these pictures actually mean. So you guys let me know what you think in the comments, because I'd love to hear your theories and insights, because I'm sure I missed something, or if I didn't get something 100% right, please let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know your take on it, because we have to continue to research this all together as we go along. Now, the next story we're going to get into is just things that are going on in the news that I have to point at. First, you have these three weasels, these three just scumbag, low-life snakes who are all implicated in some pretty criminal stuff, and I think that they all will be eventually indicted. And in my opinion, the allegations against them certainly could prove to be true, but we are not sure on that yet. Here's what we do know, though. We know Comey is a leaker and a liar. We know John Brennan is a scumbag and a snake and an unpatriotic piece of garbage. And we know James Clapper lied under oath, as did James Comey. And then John Brennan's behind the scenes running the CIA, obviously doing some pretty nefarious things that maybe have not fully come to light yet, but we'll give that time. Although he's a avid hater of the president as well, and a raisin-faced turd at that. Just had to throw that in there. Now, what this article from the Washington Times is talking about is the tradecraft failings of the CIA's conclusion that Putin interfered in the election to help Trump win. Now, these three scumbag weasels, criminals, eventually will be convicted as criminals, in my opinion. These three guys, who I truly despise with a passion, although the Christian in me is not wanting to be that way, but sometimes people just are not good people. Now, this article goes on, though, to say that the way that the conclusions were made by the intelligence agencies were totally outside of the realm of what normal process would be for investigating things like Trump's connection to Putin and so on and so forth. They call them here in the article tradecraft failings, and what that really means is that they went outside the norms of standard procedure in order to compartmentalize the investigation into Trump-Russia collusion, and in order to get these crazy things through, like getting the FISA court to sign off on tapping Trump Tower because of Carter Page of all people, or listening to the leaker not Papadopoulos, is it Papadopoulos? Whoever the guy is that was the other guy who's there for one meeting. He's such a nothing and nobody that it's not even important to mention his name. But these fake things that they put together in order to create this motive that Trump and Putin are working together to subvert democratic elections, which makes no sense, especially given the stance Trump has taken with Russia since then. I mean, I hope you guys are following here. But the article continues to talk about how something really important down here. It says the report said, quote, and this is from the House Intelligence Committee, the House Permanent Committee on Intelligence, right? It says, quote, CIA analysts in their draft was subjected to an unusually constrained review and coordination process which deviated from established CIA practice. The committee is not aware of these problems being prevalent in the CIA, FBI, or NSA products. They're pointing to the CIA and saying that they deviated from the established practice, and in doing so, they created this false narrative, and then they spread it out to all the other intelligence communities, who in turn took them at their word, as well as taking Comey at his word, who is obviously a liar and obviously a leaker, who will be brought up on criminal charges, hopefully, and he will be sentenced to criminal to jail, basically, for what he's done. He's committed incredible crimes against the country, in my opinion. It's all alleged. We don't have exact proof yet, although he's making it pretty easy by writing a book and talking about how all these things, and how he leaked the classified information that he says is not classified because it's his personal memos, when it's all about what he was doing at the FBI, which is technically all classified information. Incredible. Now, here's James Comey's latest tweet. I know the New York FBI. There are no stormtroopers there, just a group of people devoted to the rule of law and the truth. Our country would be better off if our leaders tried to be like them rather than comparing them to Nazis. Yeah, okay. Well, as much as I do believe James Comey that there's no stormtroopers at the FBI, literally, they act like stormtroopers when they raid the president of the United States' lawyers' offices and steal, illegally in my opinion, unfounded, documents relating to client attorney privilege, and then they put a globalist judge in a court in New York who sits down and decides to take all of those, in my opinion, illegally stolen documents of client attorney privilege and put them into an basically, excuse me, a national database that can be searched by anyone, so that any dirt that may or may not exist inside of Trump's past with his lawyers can be pulled out at any time, especially in important times such as the 2018 midterm election run, and as well as the 2020 presidential general election, where Trump will be running again for his second term. How do I know that? And here's another thing. How do I know that the judge is a globalist? Well, shortly before making her ruling, where she decided that attorney-client privilege didn't seem to matter anymore, she was actually going off and marrying George Soros to his, I think, third wife or fourth or fifth, who knows. That's the kind of people we're dealing with here. That's the kind of corrupt system that we're inside of, and that's the evil that would be very similar to the Nazis, not calling them Nazis, but it would be similar to Nazi tactics that were used, that James Comey, see, these Democrats, they're so predictable. It's almost hilarious. They accuse you inevitably of what they're guilty of. It'll always happen. It's like their natural defense mechanism. It's like, you're a fascist. And then they're like, no. You're a fascist. And you're like, that's not a counter to my pointing out that you're a fascist. That's literally just calling me a fascist. And they're like, no. You don't understand. I'm not a fascist. You're a fascist. And it's so childish. It's so below what normal discourse should be. But that's what they do. Okay, they're like a group of toddlers who can't handle the truth. Now, next thing I want to point out is something very interesting. And we're going to get through a few different things, then we're going to wrap it up here. But back channel 17, everybody's talked about this for a while. Guy had to come out a while ago and say he was not Q, and he talked about how he was an Air Force secret intelligence officer or something. And it's funny now, his account's shut down. I'm curious as to why. And then I saw this tweet, and I think it has something to do with it. So you have here Lisa Crowley, who does great work at what she does, says, hey, at back channel 17. And it says, did the Air Force clear your tweeting this photo claiming it was taken at a briefing today when it was really taken at an award ceremony at the Pentagon on the 27th of April? Verify all intel. Right? And here's the picture, right? He posts this picture apparently talking about how he was at a briefing today, quote unquote. This is what that guy said, whoever back channel 17 is. And then Lisa just posts this picture here that's the larger picture from a press conference from a long time ago. I just thought that was great. We have to expose people who try to claim to be Q. Q's even said no communications outside the board. Anybody claiming that is definitely lying, and so on and so forth. So just glad to see that situation resolve itself. I don't know any of the backstory behind it. I don't want to make any accusations. I just think that obviously somebody is tucking their tail between their legs because they realize they've been called out for not sharing the truth, which is obviously not a good thing. But what I want to talk about here is you have this Q post, and I don't know if it's related, but we've had messages mixed in with other messages before. And this is a Q post from April 27th where he's talking about, and the Q post is this. It's talking about how the FBI text messages were released between Lisa Stroke and, or Peter Stroke and Lisa Page. Now, I've read through the entire, I think it's like 60-page document, the redacted version, and there is some fascinating things that are going to come out when the unredacted version is hopefully released. There's stuff that looks like they could be talking about EG and R when they're talking about referencing names for people who are there in contact with. In my opinion, that could be what Q's telling us when you talk about Evergreen and Renegade. Who are Evergreen and Renegade? Well, Evergreen was Hillary Clinton's code name from the Secret Service, and Renegade was Barack Obama's code name from the Secret Service. And inside these text messages, it seems like they talk about a lot of people using one-letter references, and a lot of those seemingly one-letter references are redacted. So that could be incredibly huge. And I think that that could show so much. And it's funny because you hear that the lawmakers are really out to get this corruption. Some of them, the good ones, DeSantis, Nunez, others, they're working hard because they've been able to go to the, I believe it's the Department of Justice that's holding the unredacted version, and they've been able to read the unredacted version and look at it in context. And let me tell you, it doesn't look good for Stroke or Page. They both are obviously guilty of all types of, I don't know about crimes yet, but I can certainly say unethical behaviors would be a starting point for that. And when you're working at the FBI, you should be in the most ethical position ever, rather than whatever these people have done. But let's read the Q post. It says, expand. Who interviewed Flynn? What redacted texts were released yesterday? Coincidence? Why did Flynn take the bullet? Rubber bullet? Lawmakers make public. Lawmakers learn Gmail draft comms yesterday. Lawmakers go hunting. What is the purpose of a laser pointer? You have more than you know. Comms understood. Q. Okay. So the point that I wanted to make is about the laser pointer comment. Now, interestingly enough, I think this is all talking about obviously what it's talking about, right? But an interesting story popped up today where the Pentagon actually confirms that the Chinese have fired lasers at U.S. pilots. And this is happening in Djibouti in Africa. One of China's first international military bases in Djibouti in Africa is being basically monitored and interacted with by U.S. Air Force and U.S. military forces. And what they're doing is they're flying around it, obviously probably watching it, monitoring it, taking pictures, trying to understand what they're doing there, which is completely fair. And what you have, though, is the Pentagon confirming that the Chinese have fired lasers at military aircraft that are flying near the base in the region. And it's injured several pilots. Now, what this all kind of connects to is, so we had this very interesting, and I know I'm drawing some very far out conclusions here, so you guys feel free to kind of give me your own opinion, because I know I'm just putting things together right now. Hopefully I'm putting them together so that you guys can put together stuff so that we can continue to just make better analysis. But it's interesting to note that the president, when he went to Puerto Rico after the Hurricane Maria disaster, he actually sat under a C-130 that was apparently a part of the Puerto Rico Air Guard, so the National Guard there. And is that fascinating, though, that we have the C-130 that crashed in Savannah a couple days ago, and all 5 on board were killed. Unfortunately, we pray for their families of the lost soldiers. Now, another AN0N's pointed out something very interesting about that flight that went down. They are talking about how it stalled. It said that it stalled on takeoff and then did a nosedive basically into the ground. And one of the AN0N's pointed out, well, how does all 4 engines stall? I mean, usually they have many safeguards to keep that from happening. If you lose one engine, I can understand going into a stall even, and then maybe being able to glide out and correct. But apparently they didn't have the airspeed, and they went straight down nose first, and that was it. Some people have said that, is it possible, and I'm not saying that this is what happened, I'm saying, is it possible that the plane went up and was being remote controlled? One person has insinuated, and then it was crashed on purpose because the soldiers' lives were lost somewhere else and it had to be a cover. I don't believe that. That's the stuff that kind of floats around on the 8chan, 4chan, and Reddit forums, where you just kind of read through it and you go, okay, all right, not really sold yet. But that's going to be it for this episode. I just wanted to bring that theory to you because I'd like to put these things out and air them out and let you guys kind of listen to them and then think. Maybe it'll click something in your head and you'll figure out something and you'll share that down in the comments. But I really look forward to reading through those comments. But that's going to be it for today's post. I want to say thank you all for watching. If you're looking for a way to contribute to this channel, the best way to do it is to come here to this landing page, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications. That way you'll be notified when these videos get posted. The second best way you can help out the channel, truly, is to just scroll down and comment. Leave your thoughts, theories, insights, whatever you got, share it. Because like I say, we try to make our own QAnon research board at the end of each one of these videos where we talk about what's happened on the Q board, and then we talk about what possibilities they could mean and so on and so forth. But I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me here today. If you're looking for another way to contribute to the channel, please come over here and check out my Patreon. It's patreon.com. You just search Just Informed Talk. You come here and you can donate. Definitely a two-way street. You can get some rewards. And don't forget, I will be making that donation to charity coming up here very soon. I've narrowed it down to 2 charities, and I'm just doing the research right now to figure out which one's the best. But I'll let you know as soon as I figure out which charity I'm going to be donating the 10% to from here on Patreon. But just remember that you guys are definitely contributing to not just helping me keep this channel going, but then also you're contributing to a good cause and a charity. So come check it out. And I thank you in advance. You can come check out my rewards and goals. But thank you in advance, truly, to everybody who comes here and checks it out. And thank you to all my patrons who've already contributed. You guys are what are making this channel possible. So thank you, certainly. Now, with that being said, we're going to talk about the most important thing, okay? And that's God and why we need to praise God. Now, for those of you out there who are experiencing life and things don't seem to be going right, and you may be having a troubled heart, you may be having a difficult time at work, or you may be having a difficult time at home, or you may just feel that nothing is going right for you. And I've been there. I know that feeling. I try not to be there anymore because I've become fulfilled with the Lord, and His love fills my heart so that I can never grow too weary. But if you're in a place where you don't feel that love and you're not experiencing it on a daily basis, just do me a favor. Start praying. Pray all day. Pray every day. Reach out to God. Make that connection on your own. If you reach out to God, He will be there for you, and He will shed His light on you so that you can shed the light of the Lord out into the world. But today we're going to read a great psalm, and it's going to talk about how we should praise and why it's so important. And I hope these words touch your heart like they do mine. But we're going to talk about Psalm 98, and we're going to read right through it here. It says, and it's called Praise the King, which is a great story to say. Sing a new song to the Lord, for He has performed wonders. His right hand and holy arm have won Him victory. The Lord has made His victory known. He has revealed His righteousness in the sight of all of the nations. He has remembered His love and faithfulness to the house of Israel. All the ends of the earth have seen our God's victory. Shout to the Lord, all the earth. Be jubilant. Shout for joy and sing. Sing to the Lord with the lyre and melodious song. With trumpets and the blast of the ram's horn, shout triumphantly in the presence of the Lord our King. Let the sea and all that fills it, the world and those who live in it, resound. Let the rivers clap their hands. Let the mountains shout together for joy before the Lord, for He is coming to judge the earth. He will judge the world righteously and the peoples fairly. Now, that to me is just it's an incredibly inspiring verse about how we should take every chance we can to praise God, to praise His glorious works, and to seek His guidance and wisdom so that we can continue to humble ourselves before Him and make ourselves the servants that He deserves, and then also provide for ourselves that comfort, that knowledge that our eternal souls are saved. Because God is here for us, and He will come eventually to judge the earth. And He will judge righteously, and He will judge peoples fairly. But we have to understand that it's our duty to praise Him. It's our duty to worship Him, and it's our duty to put Him in our hearts every single day through prayer and our actions and what we say and do. So just remember that. If you're having trouble with anything and life doesn't seem to be going well, which I know some of you out there are feeling that right now. I know some of you out there are hurting. You're going through difficult times. I've talked to some of you personally via chat on whatever medium that you guys have reached out to me on. I pray for each and every one of you. I pray that your hearts are healed. I pray that you find a closer connection to God. And I pray that he gives you all the blessings that you deserve. And I pray that you spread those blessings to others, because the way I look at it is God has blessed me. Even if I have hardship, even if I have trouble, even if things don't seem to be going my way, my attitude never changes. Because in the back of my mind, and I try to bring it up front, to the front of my mind all the time, but in the back of my mind, I always know that God's there for me. And just remember, God is always there for you. Okay? So that's going to be it for this episode. I want to say thank you all for watching. If you've enjoyed the episode, make sure you come here and click if you have not already, but if you haven't clicked it, come here and click the big red subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications. But that's going to be it for me. I want to say thank you all for watching. This has been another episode of Just Informed Talk. I'm Craig. Godspeed and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.